Ever found yourself stuck, waiting for a whole application to redeploy just because of one tiny little bug
Oh
fix?
yeah, that's a classic pain point.
Or maybe, the idea of scaling your app feels like trying to push a huge rock uphill.
Definitely. These are common frustrations.
Well, if any of that sounds familiar, you're definitely in the right place. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're really going to break down a fundamental choice in application development. Should you go with microservices or stick with a monolithic architecture?
It's a big one. And you hear these terms thrown around a lot.
Exactly. So if you're in IT, maybe you're a student learning the ropes, these concepts are honestly crucial.
Absolutely essential to grasp.
Stick with us, and we'll give you the essential differences, kind of a shortcut to
I'll
understanding.
try and cut through the jargon.
And hey, if you find this chat helpful, please do consider subscribing to our channel, Topictrick, for more deep dives like this.
Yeah, definitely do that.
So our mission today, pretty straightforward, really. We want to clearly lay out the key structural differences, the operational contrasts.
So you can really get a feel for which approach might be the right call for your project and, importantly, why.
Right, the why is key. So where should we start? Monolith first.
Yeah, let's start there. Let's picture a monolithic architecture. Just imagine like one single really large container.
Okay, one big box.
Exactly. And inside that box, you've got all the different parts of your application. The UI, the business logic, how it talks to the database, everything.
All bundled together.
All in one unified code base, one single deployable unit.
Okay, so everything lived together. What happens then when you need to, say, update just one small piece?
Well, that's where it gets a bit tricky. Any update, doesn't matter how small, means you have to redeploy the entire application.
The whole thing. Every single time.
Every single time.
Yeah.
Think of it like having to repack your entire suitcase just because you wanted to add, I don't know, a pair of socks.
Okay, that sounds potentially disruptive. Downtime, maybe.
It can definitely lead to more significant downtime, yeah. And there's always the risk of ripple effects. One change unintentionally breaking something else.
And scaling. What if your app gets popular and you need more power?
Well, the standard way to scale a monolith is basically cloning. You just clone the whole application and run multiple identical instances.
So you spin up more copies of that big box.
Exactly. Which works, it handles more load, but you're replicating everything, even the parts that aren't under stress. So it could be quite heavy on resources.
It sounds very interconnected, tightly bound together.
That's the term we use.
Yeah.
Tight coupling. Changes in one component can, and often do, impact others in ways you might not expect.
Which probably makes changes more complex, I imagine.
It certainly can. And it often locks you into a single technology stack for the whole application, making it harder to adopt new tools or languages for specific parts.
And what about failures, if one part breaks?
That's a key vulnerability. Because it's all one unit, a failure in a single component has the potential to bring down the entire system, a single point of failure.
Okay, so that's the monolith picture. Let's flip the coin now. Microservices. What's the fundamental difference?
Right, microservices. Instead of that one big application, you break it down. You have a collection of small, independent services.
Independent. How does that work?
Each service is built around a specific business capability, like user authentication or maybe product catalog or order processing. And they talk to each other using APIs.
Ah, APIs. So they communicate over the network.
Exactly. Think of it maybe like different departments in a company. Each one is specialized, does its own job, but they coordinate through, say, memos or emails, the APIs in this case.
Okay, I like that analogy. So if they're independent, how does that change that whole update process we talked about?
This is really one of the biggest advantages. Because each service is self-contained, you can update and deploy just that one service without touching anything else.
Ah, so no more repacking the entire suitcase.
Precisely. You just swap out the socks. This means you can deploy much faster, more frequently, and with significantly less risk to the overall system. Much more agile.
And scaling, how does that compare to cloning the whole monolith?
It's much more granular, much more efficient. You can scale individual services based on their actual demand.
So if only the login service is getting hammered.
You scale just the login service. You don't need to waste resources scaling the parts that are idling. It leads to much better resource utilization.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. What about just managing the code and fixing bugs day to day?
That tends to get easier too because of what we call loose coupling. Services don't depend deeply on the internal workings of others.
So changes in one are less likely to break another.
Much less likely. Code maintenance is generally simpler, upgrades are easier to manage, and different teams can often work on different services independently.
And technology stacks, are you still locked into one?
Not at all. That's another big plus. You have polyglot persistence in programming. Different services can use completely different programming languages, databases, whatever tech makes the most sense for that specific job.
Flexibility. Okay. And the failure point we mentioned with monoliths.
Microservices give you better fault tolerance, improved resilience. If one service fails, say, the recommendation engine goes down, it doesn't necessarily crash the entire application.
So the rest of the site, like placing an order, might still work?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The system can degrade gracefully rather than failing completely.
Okay, so weighing these up. When would you really lean towards microservices? What's the sweet spot?
Generally, they really shine for large-scale, complex applications, things that need a lot of flexibility, expect frequent updates, and where you need that ability to scale different parts independently.
Makes sense for the big players, maybe. And the monolith, when is that still a perfectly good choice?
Look, it definitely still has its place. Monoliths can work really well for small to medium-sized applications, especially early on, or where simplicity in development and deployment is the main goal. It's often faster to get started with.
So if you don't need that massive scale or independent deployment right away, maybe start simple.
Can be a very valid strategy, yes. Less initial complexity.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. The core difference really seems to be that single, unified structure versus this collection of independent communicating services.
Right, and that fundamental difference impacts pretty much everything. Deployment speed, how you scale, resilience, even team structure and technology choices.
It really forces you to think ahead. So maybe a final thought for our listeners. Considering these differences, what kind of future challenges or maybe growth plans might really push your project towards one architecture over the other down the line?
Or maybe, if you're working on an app right now, which model feels more familiar? And what are some of the daily realities of pros and cons you're actually led with?
Definitely something to chew on. Well, thanks for diving deep into this with us today. It's been really insightful.
My pleasure. It's a fascinating topic.